Let's go. Our guest today is a business minded data nerd who's worked in the data industry for 2 decades. That's 20 years. And in his 2 decades as a practitioner, he's worked on the full gamut of data tasks from statistical modeling, forecasting, machine learning, data engineering, data architecture, and almost everything else in between. He's taken all that experience and started his own venture and is currently the CEO of Ternary Data. He's also the host of the popular data show and podcast, the Monday Morning Data Chat, and he also hosts the Data Nerd Herd and a new podcast that just started today, the Joe and Friends podcast. And if that wasn't impressive enough already, he runs several popular meetups, including the Utah Data Engineering Meetup and the Salt Lake City Python Meetup. In addition to teaching at the University of Utah, he's also co-author of the upcoming O'Reilly book, The Fundamentals of Data Engineering. So please help me in welcoming our guest today, the boss mayor of the Data Nerd Herd and 1/5 of the Data Heretics, Joe Reis. Joe, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be on the show today, man. I appreciate having you
Anytime,
here.
buddy. Anytime.
Yeah, man, it's a good honor to have you on. I know, man, we've been hanging out every Friday for almost a year.
Almost a year now. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's
I
been
think I
awesome to
joined
have
you.
you there.
I think I found out about your office hours. What was that? December, kind of around Christmas time. And I was like, let's check this out. This is
Yeah,
really cool. So
yeah, man, you've been coming and helping a lot of people with a lot of stuff and like literally
cool.
changing people's lives and changing the trajectory of their career. So I am forever grateful for your support in
Yeah,
that
awesome.
respect.
Well,
And
thanks for what you do as well. I think it speaks a lot to you that you've been taking time out of your schedule, I think, as well, and doing this, every week and now multiple times a week. So thank you. It's really cool what
thank
you're
you,
doing.
man. Thank you, man. Thank you. That's enough about me. Enough about me. Let's let's talk about you, Joe. Let's get to know you a little bit better, man. I don't think I don't think I've ever actually heard kind of your backstory, and let's start at the very beginning, man. Where did you grow up, and what was it like there?
Kind of grew up in a few areas. So, I mean, I grew up in, was born in Omaha, Nebraska, of all places. So, in the middle of nowhere. And if that wasn't cool enough, then I also moved to another middle of nowhere place in Lander, Wyoming. I think it was 9 or 10 when I moved there. So, that was cool. That was in the mountains in what was that, the late 80s, I think. So, it's just kind of this rundown town that I think the steel mill had just closed. My dad got a job there, and so it was cool. But then that town ended up becoming, rock climbing got popular in the early '90s, and then that ended up becoming like one of the best outdoor destinations in the United States. So everyone knows where anyone who does anything outside knows where Lander is now. So it's kind of cool growing up there before and after it got popular.
Yeah,
So
man. I drove from Sacramento to Chicago, so I drove through that kind of entire stretch from Utah through like past Wyoming and all
mhm.
that stuff. But did a pit stop in Omaha for I think just 1 or 2 nights, man. I really liked Omaha. I thought Omaha was a really cool place. I mean, 311's from there, so that was always
311's from
pretty.
there. That's all you need to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Warren
And then
Buffett's from there. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Warren Buffett's out there too. And I mean, Wyoming's like desolate but beautiful. Like
well, okay,
it's
so I-80
really.
when you drive through Wyoming, that's like the best thing. It's great for the state because everyone thinks that that's what Wyoming looks like. It's just like a Tatooine or something from Star
Yeah.
Wars. But no, if you go north, you start getting mountains like Jackson and the Wind River Mountains, and it's like probably the most beautiful areas in the whole country. But I'm glad I-80 is where it is. People just drive by and like, this place sucks. Get me out of here. So,
So, what were you like as a high school kid?
oh, geez.
Yeah, what did you think your life future would look like?
Oh man, high school. Um, it was kind of funny. I think it's a mix between like Hunter S. Thompson and Ferris Bueller. So, like definitely spent a lot of time partying, but I got good grades. I was actually a class president as well. For a few weeks, I ran as a joke, and then I think the joke was on me because I actually won. So, um, and then what else? I did like debate, student congress as a speech nerd. and skateboarded a lot, snowboarded a lot back when snowboarding was still like a new sport. So just did all kinds of stuff, got into a lot of trouble. So yeah, it was a kind of town where I think, in Lander where the cool thing to do, I think at the time, was cruise Main. So you just like drive up and down this main street. That was really boring. So I read a lot of books is what I ended up doing. Right. So I think in addition to that, that's where I picked up a good reading habit. I think to the point where I was reading probably a few books a week.
Yeah. That's one thing that you're well known for is not only the data engineering know-how, but the eclectic reading habit.
I have a very eclectic reading habit, and I read a ton. So yeah.
So when did you make the move over to Salt Lake City? Was that when you started working? Did you go to school there?
Nah, man, I wasn't working at all. I was climbing. So after high school, I'd moved in my senior year actually to Bellingham, Washington to finish up high school and start college early, just because I was just tired of living in, how it is when you're a teenager. You just get annoyed with everything, and I was annoyed with the town I was in. So moved out and moved to Bellingham. And at that point I was like, well, geez, I kind of wanted to go climbing. So I guess I'll move back to Wyoming. So I did. And I just spent my time climbing. That's all I did for a number of years, just rock climb. I had odd jobs. I was a floor installer, worked at a hardware store, did various odd jobs just so I could continue climbing. Got some sponsors along the way. So that helped a lot in terms of, I think, getting free gear, and also just getting a lot of, I guess, publicity for whatever that's worth in the climbing world back in the 90s. But I ended up in Salt Lake. I was at the Outdoor Retailer Show, which was a big, it's basically the world's largest outdoor industry expo. So if you're in the outdoor industry, if you're selling skis or climbing equipment or hiking or whatever, you're going to be at the Outdoor Retailer Show. So I was visiting some sponsors. That's back when Salt Lake had the show. And, Salt Lake at the time, I think, had some weird stigma behind it. It's kind of like, it's kind of a square town, kind of boring. But when I got here, it's like, okay, this place is amazing. It had like the best climbing I'd ever seen in next to a city, the best outdoors I'd ever seen. And it wasn't a small town. So that was nice. So I decided to come here for a few weeks. This was in 1998. And almost to the day, actually. And then I ended up just staying here. I've been here since 98. So yeah,
that's cool, man. And I mean, throughout those years, that you kept a little bit of that teenage angst, because you did eventually get tired of data science and move into data engineering. But we're going to get into that in a little bit here. You were in data science before it was cool. So talk to us about how'd you kind of get into the field? I guess, if anybody wants to find out how Joe got into the field, you can listen to Kenji's podcast, because I remember hearing the origin story there. Ken's just on the LinkedIn stream, gave us a flex muscle. But talk to us about, I guess, what the industry in general was like before data science was cool, and what was it like kind of when you first started out, and what drew you to this kind of field?
I mean, it's interesting. Back in the day, so I got into the data in the early 2000s, and I was originally going to be an actuary. Actually, I think we kind of share some kindred spirits with that, and that was a field I was going to get into, because I think that was I studied mathematics at the University of Utah. You had a couple options back in 2000, 2001. You could go and be an actuary. You can go work in the government, or you can become a professor, or I guess you can go wait tables. It wasn't really, or you can be an analyst, right? And so my senior year, I got a job offer to go work doing a sales analytics at a company that soon turned into doing kind of more like predictive modeling and optimization and that kind of stuff. And to me, that was just doing like, I'd been looking for analytics jobs, and I guess I landed that one pretty square, and was doing that kind of work, able to impact various departments in this company. And and when I look back on it, that type of work was exactly what data scientists were doing. Sans without machine learning, because you weren't doing machine learning to any degree, because computers were very low powered back then. To say like Excel, I think had a 65,000 row limit or something back then. So I mean, anything past that would Excel would stop working. So that gives you an idea of like how much horsepower you had in your computers. It was like none whatsoever. So, but you kind of made do with the tools that you had, and I'd say in the late 2000s, I'd always been interested in machine learning. Just trying to teach computers, um, how to do pattern recognition stuff, I guess. But I just realized, the hardware wasn't there. But around like the late 2000s, I noticed like there's like cloud computing, and I had an itch to kind of get back into writing code. I used to actually write code when I was younger, like in the 90s and stuff. Growing up, I didn't even tell you that in high school. Yeah, so I mean, I had like a early. It's probably one of the first people on the internet, I would say, like 92. I had an internet connection because my dad felt really bad for me, so he got me an internet connection because there's needed like an outside outlet in a small town like that. So, so it's kind of cool, just getting into early networking and bulletin board services and just finding all kinds of getting into like whatever you'd call hacking back then. It's very rudimentary compared to what you find now. And I want to get back into that. I think in the late 2000s, I just finished a stint as a chief operating officer at a company. I was kind of bored. I was like, it's fun what I'm doing, but I really want to get probably back into something more hardcore. And so machine learning caught my fancy. And so I started diving into that. And I'd say around, there weren't a lot of machine learning opportunities back then. It was like, you talk to people about it, and like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But I was lucky enough to meet up with an old coworker at a company I'd worked at, and as well as a math professor who had, thankfully been hacking on this interesting ensemble learning mechanism in his spare time in his basement. So we teamed up, I think around, what was it, 2012, around then, maybe earlier, I can't remember, but we were talking about starting a company that would just basically, you could do automated machine learning. So a company would give you a file, a user would give you a structured file, you'd be able to make predictions on it. And so that was cool. So I was hired as a software engineer to work on that, right? And I think that was when I started realizing very early on that the algorithms piece was actually the easiest piece. Getting raw data and trying to getting, I would say, unforeseen raw data and trying to make predictions on that on any data set, that's an engineering challenge. And very quickly I realized machine learning in production isn't just about throwing an algorithm against a data set. It's like, okay, so how do you process the features in such a way that they're coherent to the algorithm in an automated fashion? How do you serve models? Right? What about retraining, all this other stuff? So that got my mind thinking about it. This was super early days. I guess now some of the stuff is ML ops, but that got me interested in data engineering. And then over time, what I kept noticing with, this is about the same time when machine learning was starting to take off in popularity. I think Andrew Ng had open sourced his, the first Coursera class. I think it was a machine learning class. He was teaching in Octave, I think. And that got, I think the first class got 100,000 students, including myself. So this is kind of cool to learn from this guy, and he's teaching this class at Stanford and whatnot. So, I think after that I sold on a machine learning. But again, I realized that there's one aspect that you can do machine learning, but without good engineering, it's not going to really have any hope of doing anything valuable.
So. Yeah. You had like proper architect's mindset back then. That's kind of what it sounds like there. So kind of before data science was data science, it had these other names, like you mentioned, analytics or
data mining,
things like that. So I'm wondering, in your opinion, where is the science in data science? Is there any science in data science? Is it scientism?
That is a good question. I don't know. Sometimes I have this saying that data science is neither. So it's a kind of tongue in cheek. It actually comes back from the climbing days. There's an old kind of tongue in cheek quote that sport climbing is neither, from a friend of mine, John Sherman. But because he's poking fun at climbing, and I sometimes feel that way about data science. I'm not sure where the science is, because it's not really a science in the strict sense, like chemistry is a science or like physics is a science. Like the amount of, okay, so if you're to take a scientific approach, for example, you come up with a hypothesis, test it out, right? I see some data scientists do that. For the most part, I see everything except that. So it tends to just be a kind of throw whatever happens to stick to the wall and hope for the best. So what I have observed and why I kind of push back on the term data science. And again, I don't really care what people call it. Call it data science. Call it whatever you want. But it just didn't have the rigor that I'd seen in other sciences, for example. Right. So and there's not really like one methodology for it. I think, and I also noticed that data science started incorporating lots of different aspects of what used to be very distinct disciplines in data. BI, for all I know, is data science now. I think it is actually. If I look at data science job postings, analytics certainly is. So it's an open-ended question.
Yeah. So when we speaking of open-ended questions, like, do you think, I know you might be familiar with these ideas within philosophy logic, but this problem of induction. Do you think that data scientists need to concern themselves with these type of philosophical problems, problem of induction, ethics, even things like that?
Yeah, I think so. Induction is a good skill set to have. Ethics is something I don't think you can avoid. You'd avoid it at your own cost for sure. So yeah, I think it's just, what I noticed, when data science is really taking off, like in the early, I would say like 2013 is when you started seeing the groundswell of data science starting to take off. Like I think Kaggle was starting to have competitions around that time, the first Kaggle comps at least. And then it quickly went into like 2015 with Window Overdrive. Everyone's like, I need to do machine learning. I need to learn how to train models and all this other stuff, right? But what I think was really missing was like all the important questions. Like training a model is one thing, but that's like one aspect of what a data scientist should be concerned with, in my opinion. There's also the question of, should you even be doing this? And so I would see a lot of machine learning, especially in the old days, credit scoring models, for example, just really that kind of stuff. The data sets that were being used, ethically nowadays, I would say you wouldn't be using those data sets. I'll just leave it at that. So, and just, some of the approaches, I would say it just, I'm glad that the field's maturing to even ask these types of questions. I think it was definitely the Wild West for a long time. You could see this in the big tech companies too. Some brazen approaches by, certain companies that had their entire service knocked out the other day. It was a Wild West because I think people were enamored with the potential of data science, saying, well, we have all this power, so let's just make the world a better place by throwing machine learning at everything. And I think you now see the end result of some of that when it's not reined in with ethics, and just thoughtfulness from the beginning. If you're only, but it's the old saying, right? You show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome. If the incentive is basically just to, make a lot of money at no expense, then what do you think you're going to do, right? If there's no consequences, sure, go for it.
Skin in the game, right? If you're a data scientist, you gotta have some skin in the game, man.
Yeah, if you try to do something, if you take the medical analogy to this, right? If you try to do this as a physician, just weird experiments on people. At minimum, you're going to lose your license, right? And I feel like that's exactly what happened with society in general, with the application of a lot of these algorithms, at scale, in mass production. So. And I don't think it's the uncontroversial thing to say anymore. I think when I would say this back in the day, people were like, you're crazy. Facebook and all these other companies are doing such a great thing. Right. And
yeah, I like that last point you're making. I think every data scientist should read Skin in the Game by Nassim Taleb.
That's such a good book.
It'll solidify this concept of what that means, right? Like if you're out, the one thing he talks about in the book is like the silver rule: don't do to others what you don't want done to you. So think about what you're developing with those algorithms, and think about if you would want someone to weaponize your own behavior against you in that particular manner, or things like that. Just think about that. Kind of talked about a little bit, what a recovering data scientist is. Well, not really. We talked about what kind of made you become disillusioned, I guess, with data science. But what would you say is a recovering data scientist? Tell me what you mean by that, and then talk to me about what the road to recovery has been like for you.
Road to recovery. Well, I snorted and smoked a lot of data science back in the day. I'm not proud of what I did. I was young. I needed the money. So I'm joking. No, I think it was, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Gonzo, Ben Taylor's business partner. And I were joking about it because he felt the same way. And I think we started calling each other reformed or recovering data scientists, and just sort of stuck, right? So, because we had the same, we had exactly. You should get him on your show sometime. This guy's fun to talk to, but yeah, we had a lot of the same observations where I think there was just this mad rush to get into data science, and we'd both worked at this original auto ML company, and I think we had a lot of perspectives, and he had been doing a lot of ML before, and I think we were like two peas in a pod. Like, you've seen the same thing I am. I don't think I'm crazy, right? And so, that's when I think, sobriety, as use the analogy, became an attractive option. But the road to recovery since then, it's been fine. I think it was one of those things where I felt alone in the wilderness for a bit, so to speak, especially from like 2015 to probably 2019. Because everyone was like, why aren't you into machine learning? I mean, you're good at it and all this stuff, not to sound like Michael Scott. But I don't suck at it. So I'm doing it a while, but it's one of those things where I was like, most of the applications I saw it being used for, I was like, that's not really like a machine learning application at all. You could like make a report and pretty much accomplish the same thing at about a fifth of the time and effort. I just think it was like the fact that people are just throwing machine learning at everything. And so I just kind of started focusing on the broader picture of just the systems that would enable machine learning and analytics to function at scale, because it wasn't like data wasn't it was growing a lot, right? It's like it's just because everyone's doing machine learning, like the data engineering was never a consideration. I just think there wasn't really a name for it. Early people like Jesse Anderson were giving it shout out to him. I think he's a pioneer in the space in terms of giving it some visibility, data engineering that is. But yeah, I think I just turned my attention to the engineering aspects of it. And in the meantime, I did work at another ML startup as well and helped them out. But over and over, I just kept seeing the same themes. It's like, I don't think 90% of these things you're trying to do ML with, you don't need it. You really don't.
So talking about that, you mentioned we could do BI and reporting, whatever, and get the result in a fifth of the time. Like when these companies are out here hiring, let's just say they're out here, they're inspired, they go to a conference and they're like, yes, we need to start doing data science. Let's start a data science team. Do you think that these leaders in these industries, if they're not coming from a data science background already, do you think they know what to do with a data scientist if they hire the first one?
It's a tough question. It depends on the background of the person, I would think. It depends if there's very, I think, strict needs for a data scientist. But if you just go into it saying you're going to hire a data scientist because you need to, I think that's not a good idea. So I've been in those positions. My business partner's been in those positions, right? Like, and I've seen this happen to countless people. You have the credentials on paper to be a data scientist, you get hired, and then you end up just making like dashboards and like data pipelines to build a foundation. And that's like precisely, where I've been and what I've seen. So, and I still see this a lot all the time. I'm talking to data scientists on the phone, like, or on Zoom calls now, I guess. But, because a lot of people, approach me and just ask kind of, in confidence, like, what's going on? Like, am I crazy here? Am I being like gaslighted? Or is there even a work for me to do here?
How do you think that negatively impacts a data scientist, right? Because I mean, nobody wants to get into a job and then like keep quitting every 6 to 8 months or whatever, 9 months, when they become disillusioned with the company and realize that they're not doing any data science. Like, what type of negative impact does that have on a data scientist in the long term? Like, does that have the potential of setting you on the wrong path for career trajectory? Does that have the potential to make you just say, I'm done with data science? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm seeing it happen, not just to me. I mean, but with others. Yeah, I think there's just a sense of it's a weird one because there's expectations in this reality, right? These are, I just think the expectations of data science got way ahead of where it was and probably where it is for a lot of companies. And I would say, if a company is data native and it has a big need for this kind of stuff, you'll know because you have to do machine learning at scale in order to like just work as a company. And that's how Google and Facebook and all these other companies had to do things at scale. They couldn't do it with humans. So, but as far as your question of job hopping and, kind of opportunity cost, yeah, it's a big thing. Like the one thing you don't get back in this world is your time, period. End of story. I'm reading David Deutsch, so maybe that actually might be proven false, but
yeah.
quantum physicists. But as far as you're concerned, as far as anyone's concerned, you don't have a lot of time, right? So there's no. I'm of the opinion I don't waste time with people or companies if they're not going to. If there's not a clear outcome that we can work towards, and I would say if there's not clear buy-in from people, I know I'm out as an employee because it's just there's so many other companies where you could be more beneficial, and I think save your sanity because you're going to get frustrated. That's the thing. You go home stewing all night about how much your job sucks, how much your boss doesn't get it, how stupid the company is. I mean, we've all been there, right? It's like I want to make a difference. I don't think there's anyone who goes into a company and says, "Well, I really want to do like a really crappy job and like add no value and just make this like the worst experience possible for everybody, including myself." Maybe there's people that are like that, but I think most people have good intentions. But again, you're up against the inertia of a company typically, right? And that's not just your boss. Your boss also has things they have to navigate through, politics, looking good for their boss, all this other stuff. So I think it's as much understanding the organizational dynamics as anything. I would say the more I've been observing it, the more I think that is single-handedly the best thing you need to do as a data scientist or any field really. If you can suss out the organizational dynamics at an employer before you get there, hopefully, the more the merrier. Because again, you don't want to waste your time with people, and if nobody wants to waste their time on a bad hire. I mean, that's expensive too. So, but unfortunately, on a good day, hiring is a crapshoot. That's how it is. You can do all the assessments you want, but at the end of the day, like hiring is tough. And the person you hired, even today, they may change. They may go through a life event that just like throws them off. I've seen this happen to people. Like somebody seems like they're a great person to work with, and all of a sudden something clicks, and then suddenly there's it's unbearable to work with. You just got to get rid of them, or just go somewhere else. Depending on the situation. So,
yeah. So let's get into your entrepreneurial journey now. You mentioned you and your business partner. Like, talk to us about how you started off on that path. How'd you guys kind of link up and decide to start Ternary Data, and maybe we can even get the story behind the company's name as well.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think it's around 2017. I was out on my own, just doing data engineering consulting, and got linked up with Matt, my business partner. Shout out to Matt, wonderful guy. He's basically my brother at this point. So, but he's a math professor, right? That's his background. So, and he joined the dark side. I got into industry as a data scientist. And I think he saw the same things I did. Hired as a data scientist and doing, guess what, data engineering work, setting up pipelines, orchestration workflows, everything except, fancy algorithms and all the stuff that he was supposedly going to be doing. So he wanted to go out and do his own consulting. And my friend introduced us and said, well, why don't you guys just work together? I'm like, sure, let's, figure each other out, see if it's a good fit. And, 6 months later, we started a business, and I guess, and we're still around almost 3 years, after. So
in that consulting kind of gig, like, what are some big mistakes that you see companies make when they're trying to build a data science team kind of from the ground up, or just, let's say they already have established data science teams? What are some mistakes that you see them make? Like, when you get in there, like, what are some problems that you just see as a consultant pop up over and over?
I'd say getting in your team's way. It's a big one. That's a big one. So not giving them support, like giving a lip service of support. Like, yeah, we really like what you guys are doing. Yeah, can we get more people? Nah, you're good. Or, can we get this is support we need? And it's kind of like, yeah, we'll get to that next quarter. So that's typically what I see. It's just that there's not the support. I think I say it's also not an appreciation for like what they do. No understanding. It's kind of like, well, we have data scientists, they're really smart. They're working on all of our problems and stuff. But, so I'd say it's just like a lack of appreciation or recognition more than anything.
So what's that kind of a day in the life like for you as an entrepreneur, data science, data engineering entrepreneur?
Sorry, my kids just got home, so I need to shut the door here.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Day in the life. Day in the life of being an entrepreneur, or day in the life of being a dad?
Data entrepreneur. Yeah.
I mean, it's changed. I mean, when Matt and I when we first started the company, I would say until recently, it was just the Joe and Matt show, right? So I would handle more of the kind of marketing and sales efforts. He would handle more of the day-to-day client engagements. I would certainly jump in if there's a need, but Matt's a powerhouse. He can do a lot of the work. And so that's how we divvied out the, sort of the boundaries. But yeah, I mean, I would say for anyone who wants to start a consulting company or a business, like, and you think you're going to be doing your technical work, it's everything except that. So get good at business in general. It's tough. So
like get good at business, man. Like if we don't go to business school, can we still get good at business? And
no, you have
like,
to get an MBA. It's the only way.
I have to get an MBA, right? Yeah,
No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
No, I
How
would
do you
say
get good
actually
at
an
it?
MBA probably hurts you in a lot of ways if you're trying to start a new business. I think MBAs help you when you're operating an existing business, but it turns you into a good operator. I don't think an MBA helps you in terms of understanding how to take advantage of entrepreneurial opportunities. That's what I've seen. And this is knowing a lot of MBAs and teaching at a business school as well, right? Like it's not a knock against an MBA program. I just think it's the right degree for certain types of situations. But for entrepreneurship, the thing you need more than anything is just patience and persistence. Like, and that can't be taught.
Yeah.
So
Can be learned though, right? You can't teach it, but you can learn it by
you
going
can
through
learn
it.
it. Yeah. And the only way you learn it is by doing it. It's kind of like, I always say, it's like learning like dating. Like you can read all the books you want about dating. It's not going to help you at all when you actually go on dates. Like it might actually work against you. So just come across like really awkward.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's entrepreneurship is tough, right? But I think a lot of it is just you got to go into the right mindset and the right approach. So I've made every mistake in the book. I've had other businesses before, and most of them have, failed. And I think a lot of it was just me not giving myself a chance to succeed. Right? You have these unrealistic expectations of when when you need to be a success. Like I need to be a millionaire by, I need to make $1 million in this company by this time next year. That may happen, but the market really determines that, not you. So, I mean, as a really wealthy person once told me when I asked him, so how do you make a lot of money? He's like, well, just sell people what they want to buy.
Nice. Yeah.
It's true.
Yep.
It's also that hard.
No. Yeah.
So
Tell people what they want to buy, man. I like that. So talking about again getting good at business, what's like because time is money, right? So if time is money, what's one cheap business skill that a data scientist could pick up that they could start practicing immediately that will help them kind of be better in their business interactions,
sales,
dealings,
sales, end of story. Because think about it, every day, whether you're at a company working, you're talking to your spouse or friends, right? What do you do every day? You communicate, and you're also selling. You're selling your idea, your version of it. I'm selling you right now on selling. It's just how it is. Sales is by far the biggest skill I would say anybody should have. My kids, right? Thing I try and teach them is how to sell, how to communicate, right?
Yeah.
Like there's the old, Jordan Belfort thing, like sell me this pen, right? From Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'll let you guys watch it. Less swear words in it, but it's a good movie. I think but that sort of thing, like sales is one of the things I would say is just like, that is the skill if you're going to be in business. It's not your technical chops. I was talking about this the other day with some people, and I think there's a misconception that because you're technical and you have great skills, you're automatically going to have a successful business when you go out on your own. That is far from true. It actually, even in your job, your technical skills, I think, account for like 10% of your success, probably less. Your ability to get ahead is about how you communicate, how you network, how you use all the soft skills that you think are lame and unnecessary. Those are the things that get you further, whether it's in business or in your career. So
and sales doesn't necessarily mean just like hand-to-hand, one-on-one sales. It could be presenting, it could be communicating, it could be writing. Even if you're a really good writer, you can have good written communications. It's just your ability to clearly communicate your ideas and kind of just put yourself in the mind of somebody else, right? Kind of speak to them.
Right. Again, sell people what they want to buy, even in a business setting, right? So I want to convince you that this model works and that it provides accuracy. Great. You can show me the numbers. That may convince me. It may not. Tell me why it's important. How is this going to make my life better? At the end of the day, people want what's going to make them look better, whether it's at work, whether you're selling to a customer. That customer, for example, wants to make themselves look like they made the best decision when they bought you. That's it. They don't want to look stupid. Same with when they hire you. Nobody wants to look stupid because they hired you, right? And you want to make people look good so they can get the promotion. That's how it works. How you get ahead in corporations or in a company is you find somebody who can be your sponsor. They can pull you up. You can do all the tutorials you want and do all the Kaggle competitions you want, but finding a good sponsor and networking and selling yourself, selling your capabilities is going to get you a lot farther than any of that stuff. Guarantee you.
So let's talk about you mentioned technical skills there, and now we're talking about creating value through your skills. You had this awesome blog post about, do data engineers add value? So talk to us about that. Do data engineers add value, and how should we think about a return on investment for the work that they do? And I'm sure that I'm putting it out there, the ROI for data engineers probably 10x that for data scientists.
10.1. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I would say that there's a couple of threads to answering this. So data engineers, any data team really is going to support two functions. You're either going to be external facing, which means you're going to be working on a product that customers use. So think about something like a recommendation engine for an e-commerce app, right? Or something like that. So there's a tangible ROI in the sense where did engagement go up through your actions? Was there a feedback loop that generates more money or something like that? What would be considered ROI? So that's easy to calculate ROI. Value is an interesting thing in general to zoom out, where people always talk about, oh, I'm going to add value. And like, what do you mean by that? Like, make me like feel good, or you make me money? Like, what's valuable, right? I have a lot of things that are valuable to me, but that might not be what's valuable to the company or this initiative. And so define value up front. Now, of course, when you're an internal facing data team or data engineer, that's a different story, because now say you're supporting internal functions, like making reports, making models, and optimize internal processes. This becomes trickier. What's the outcome? How do you evaluate the ROI on that? If you could do attribution costing, like ABC, activity-based costing, maybe that could help, but that's hard. Show me a company that's doing activity-based costing really well, and I'd love to talk, especially on data teams, right? So it's kind of like the old saying, like, what's the ROI of putting on your socks in the morning? I don't know, 10x at least. But so how you evaluate it internally is that, okay, so how am I affecting my downstream users? Like if I'm a data engineer, for example, and I need to supply data in a usable format and high quality format to data scientists and analysts, are they getting the expected data on time when they need it? Are they able to do their jobs, or is there a lag? Is crap always breaking upstream? Or our engineers with the applications I'm dependent upon, are they providing data in a reliable fashion to me? So it's all about like SLAs, service level agreements, reducing lead time, reducing defects. So I take a very operational mindset using kind of lean thinking in these cases. I take that in general because that's just kind of how I'm wired. But reduce time to value, reduce lead time, and increase quality. So those are the metrics I'd use internal facing, external facing as well. But again, just assessing ROI is always tricky. And that's where I kind of take issue when people say, well, what's the ROI on my data team? It's like, it depends what your data team is doing at the end of the day. Like if you can attribute the salary to some sort of like tangible output where you can put a dollar amount against that, great, go for you. Good for you, and go for it. But if you can't, it becomes tricky. So, and I guess it depends. Then you have to look at, okay, what's the output of the end result, right? So if it's a data science team, like what are they working on, right? And so everything should have a value, but sometimes it's really murky. So
I absolutely love that, man. Thank you so much for that. No, that's definitely one that I have to go back and rewind and listen to that, take some notes on that. Really like that. So talk to us now about kind of this data engineering life cycle. I guess so this is coming from I believe it was another blog post or LinkedIn post I saw you write up. It was the data engineering life cycle, and I guess the different steps that go into it.
Yeah. It's actually something it's going to be coming out in our book. Coming, I think earliest chapters might be out as soon as next week. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that book, man. Excited for that
It's
book when it
dope.
comes
Thanks,
out.
son.
All right.
Yeah, the data engineering life cycle is an interesting one. We'd actually first seen this in the with Google Cloud. Actually, they had a really good life cycle for data within Google Cloud. And for the most part, I think they were right, except they got a few things wrong, in my opinion. Just steps are really jumbled, and they put technologies under different steps. It's like this is kind of a hodgepodge. So zoomed out and thought, okay, so for a data engineer, like what are the things you really need to know? What are the steps in data engineering? And data engineering, what I see it as is getting data from source systems, doing something with it, making it useful, and then giving it to downstream users, for reports and machine learning and stuff like that. So. But the life cycle, right? So it's like source systems is your first one. So getting data from source systems. What's that? Well, it could be an API, it could be a database that's used in your application, ERP systems, so forth. So that's the first step. Get data, ingest it is the second step. Transform it, and then serve it. Notice though, I didn't mention storage because that undercuts basically ingestion all the way to serving, right? So all along the way, you're storing data in some way, shape, or form. So that's a life cycle in a nutshell. It provides a way of thinking about, okay, so as a data engineer, like what areas do I affect, right? Up to serving data scientists and analysts.
So, not mentioned. I saw you mention this in a recent post. Was that is it ELT versus reverse ELT, or did I get that wrong? Or you had like some
no,
qualms with that phrase?
Well, it's an interesting phrase. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm friends with the guy who, or know the guy who developed it, Tejas over at High Touch. I think he was the guy who came up with it. But at any rate, like it's not so much I take issue with it. I just think it's a weird term in that it sort of describes what's happening. So reverse ETL right now, basically, like you take data from your data warehouse and plop the results back into your source systems. This could be lead scoring, could be back into Salesforce, for example, so salespeople can get the best leads to contact and so forth. But yeah, I was on Kate's Dedicated Expo yesterday, and as in my normal fashion, I just blab and I was talking about ELT versus ETL, and then somebody wrote BLT, and I was like, oh yeah, bidirectional load and transform. And it's like, oh crap, that's actually like a Rain Man moment.
Yeah.
So you just not even thinking, you just like blurted it out and just kind of went on my merry way. And I was like, oh, interesting. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I posted on LinkedIn and got some traction. Got a lot of comments on that, and people took issue more that I was basically co-opting a sandwich to describe a data term, which I'm not apologetic about. All data things should be named after sandwiches would be my edict. So even had some guy named Ruben comment on it, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a good sandwich too. So. But yeah, it's heard it. I mean, I just said I was more tongue in cheek more than being serious, but but maybe it'll turn into a term. I don't know. I think it's more funny just because I see a lot of these buzzwords right now to describe every facet of the data ecosystem, and I just get a kick out of it. So.
Oh man, yeah, I saw some of the comments on that thread that you posted. I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting.
Right.
There's Robert Sievert. Shout out to Robert Sievert.
What's up, Robert?
He's watching LinkedIn right now. He said the BLT thing was him. So Robert,
He gave me the inspiration for it. That guy's awesome. He's a rad dude. Yeah, he just joined a kind of a group of men, and I really like the guy. So shout out. So yeah.
So I was going through your blog, man. Like I really enjoyed reading through some of the stuff.
Oh, which one?
It was the
Ternary data or my personal one? I have a personal blog that, okay, yeah.
The personal one, yeah. Personal one. I thought that was cool. Like how every Christmas you write your kids a letter. And I like the ones you wrote for 2020.
That was a messed up year. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a rough year. But you also wrote this blog post about this concept of reputational capital. And that really resonated with me. Break that idea down for us. Break that concept down. What is reputation?
Yeah, I mean, I got the notion really from Buffett. Not from him. He didn't like tell me like, hey Joe, there's a secret of the universe for you. But yeah, my WB car here. He's a cool dude, but it was what he did. At the beginning of every Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting, he shows a video from the Salomon Brothers hearing. So he was CEO of Salomon Brothers for a bit, and they went through some trouble, to say the least. Just horrible stuff happened. But he shows this video of his testimony to Congress, and he says, basically in a nutshell, use a newspaper litmus test. Is something that you're doing, would you want that on the front page of your local paper? And then he says, if you need not fear that advice, you need not fear my other piece of advice, which is if you lose money for the firm, I'll be understanding. If you lose a shred of reputation, I will be ruthless. That stuck with me, right? Reputation is everything. As he also says, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation. It takes 15 minutes to destroy it. So when we started our business, I thought it was interesting. We didn't really care about the money. We cared about reputation. We cared about doing great work, meeting great people, and just, I think, developing good relationships. No, I always optimizing for reputation. I think we felt if we could build that pile of reputational capital, the money would follow. The reverse is rarely true, though. In the short term, you can build as much money as you can, but you can destroy your reputation. And then who's going to want to do business with you? So other people who have shitty reputations, I'm sure, but that's not scalable, right? And that's not the kind of life I want to live. So
some good tips in there for sure. Good lessons rather in there. But do you have any tips for let's say people who are kind of starting out? Maybe they're not on an entrepreneurial path yet. Maybe they're just early in their data science career. They're just starting their first job as a data scientist. How can they accrue some of this reputational capital? What are some things?
Just be a badass, like do great work. The old saying is, show up early, leave late. I think that's true. Not literally though. I think office hours are stupid. But I think that mindset of just going in there and killing it every day, that is what sets you apart. You're going to get known for that in your career. Then when people leave jobs, right, that you got to consider, it's like pollen in the spring. It just goes everywhere, just blossoms and turns into new things. And that's people leaving their jobs and going to new companies. I think they're going to remember those, like what this person, right? They killed it at this job. That's the person I want. That follows you. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten opportunities from stuff and people I worked with like 10, 20 years ago now, right? Opportunities. You got to make yourself valuable, value word, but make people's lives better, right? And it's not just being about it's not about being the smartest person. It's about making people's lives better and making them feel great about you and their experience with you. So that to me is reputation, and not cutting corners, not stealing, not doing shady stuff. That's going to get you in prison. Probably you can get a good reputation in prison, I guess, but that doesn't really count for much. So
yeah, so depends on what
you're trying to do, I guess. Right.
Yeah.
So you can be like prison Mike, I guess, in the office, but
I like that. That's just show up, do the damn thing with a smile on your face, no matter if you don't like it or you do like it. Just do what needs to be done. Do what you have to do to make things
all the time, man, all the time. And it's just and it's not just. I think there's a misconception that you have to go in there, kind of guns a blazing. It's just like it's a compounding rule. Just be 1% better, and it's the old cliche, like 1% better is going to make you 337% better each year or something. But it's true, right? So, just go in there and make good impacts. Just be a nice person. I think that's the other thing. It's okay to burn bridges, though. That also, I think I should say, if somebody is unbearable and they cheat you, right, or you just feel like they're shady, who cares? Burn that bridge quick. There's other bridges. You don't need that bridge. So, because you don't want that reputational stain on you either. Being associated with a person who's probably less than reputationally desirable. So.
Yeah, no, love that. Great life advice for sure, man. So another interesting blog that you got is about science fiction and technology, specifically how reading science fiction has made you a better technologist. So how is that? Well, what's science fiction done for you? Has it made you a better technologist?
I mean, you can see around corners in a lot of ways. Science fiction authors do a really good job at imagining the future, right? Most of them don't come true, especially when it involves space aliens and going to faraway galaxies, with elves and stuff. But I I would say, I was a fan of like cyberpunk, for example. I grew up on cyberpunk, as a kid in the late 80s, early 90s, like Neuromancer, all the William Gibson books. I devoured those, loved them, still do. Neil Stephenson's Still Crash. Now you're starting to hear about the metaverse. It's a really good example, right? So I read Snow Crash. It's about VR dystopia. Not too much like we live in right now, actually, except that we don't have VR. But almost everything else in there, I'm like, yeah, I read it a few years ago, and I thought, yeah, this is shaping up to look like that. 1984, that's a science fiction book, written in 1948, and I would say, yeah, that's pretty close to a lot of what we have, except not jackbooted thugs coming in your door, but geez, a lot of stuff is pretty prescient. I think it drives not only just seeing around walls in terms of technology itself, but also ethics and how you apply technology. So that's why I like it.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
effective.
definitely. Like I watch science fiction. I haven't read much science fiction, but like I watch science fiction movies and stuff. So definitely would need to. I want to pick up something that I saw on TV. Is called Foundation by Isaac
Foundation's
Asimov.
awesome. You should
Yeah,
read that, especially if
yeah,
you're into predictions,
yeah.
right?
I was the guy's like pretty much a data scientist. Like
He is.
that's the guy. So yeah, definitely want to check that one
Yeah,
out.
that's a great book. I read that when I was a teenager, and that stuck with me a lot. The Foundation trilogy is awesome. Anything by Isaac Asimov actually is like also awesome. The guy was just a machine in terms of writing and thinking, and I don't think there's been anyone like him since. So
Yeah, definitely have to check that out.
yeah,
So, what would you say is the one sci-fi work that's had the biggest influence on you as a technologist?
probably Neuromancer. It foresaw the internet,
Yeah.
right? I
Give us
still
a
think
quick
a lot of it's
rundown. Give
what's
us a
that?
quick rundown, like a quick like synopsis of the plot for Neuromancer.
I
I've
mean, it
never
has to
even
do
heard of
with
it.
like a guy who spit down on his luck, so he has to, kind of jack in, so to speak, and hack to pay off some debts and stuff. So that's about it. But it was a concept, really. He came up with the idea of cyberspace, right? That was the first time the term was used. And so all the other books too that he wrote, Burning Chrome, for example, which is a bunch of short stories. That was cool. That just informed, like, that's why I got into computers, really, just because of those books, hacking, all this kind of futuristic stuff, people in skin suits and like, look like the Blue Man Group or something. But that kind of stuff had a really big impact on me. Because remember, I lived in a small town at the time. I had like nothing to do. I had no outlets. So I would just like sit there in my own imagination, coming up with like crazy stuff, listening to rave music that my friend gave me, like these bootleg cassettes from Manchester radio. I think it was Key 103, like a
Yeah.
rave station, played jungle music and stuff. And I just sit there like reading these books and listening to that. And, with nothing else to do, you just kind of start coming up with your own stuff in your head. So books like that were just fundamental and still are. And just being on the internet at a really early age and just reading stuff, like the Book of the Subgenius was like another book that I read. That had a big impact on me. So if anyone knows who that is, say it in the comments. I'm curious who is that obscure in their tastes. But yeah, I mean, and it was also the friends I grew up with too. We all traded books. We're all just a bunch of nerds, but I'd say like everyone was pretty smart. So it's kind of
That's
finding each
cool, man.
other.
It's like it's crazy how like at that age your friends definitely have an impact on you and rub off on you. I was hanging out with people who were just too busy trying to be like Tupac, getting my ass in trouble, doing stupid shit with them, trying to be cool, man. I'm like, fuck, man. I wish I had better friends
No,
like
no,
that.
it's crazy. And I was talking to my friend, one of my good friends last night. He's one of my best friends. Yeah, we were talking about like kind of the '90s skateboard scene because we were all skaters as well, and just how basically like that was like the last time I think you could go have fun because nothing was on the internet then. So you're just it was a pre-internet age, so you could just do whatever the hell you want, and like nothing's there for posterity. It was
Yeah, yeah,
awesome.
yeah. But nowadays everybody's lives are documented. Speaking of like skater, like I love that skate culture type of shit growing up, like the X Games and all that stuff. Like
Hmm.
the OG skateboarders were at like my idols. But it was weird, man, because I would dress like a skater, listen to like rap, and then listen
Nice.
to the opposite extreme of rap, like just punk rock and stuff like that.
No
So
way.
just a really, really weird, just a really weird kid, man. And a
So a really
great
fun thing
guy.
happened last month here in Salt Lake. So they had Tony Hawk's Vert Alert event, which was Tony Hawk set up a vert ramp, free event down in Salt Lake. It was cool. So you had Christian Hosoi, Steve Caballero, Bob Burnquist, Andy McDonald, like all the skaters, like the who's who. And it was just cool, just a skate session, vert session, with all these guys. And it was the coolest thing I'd seen in a long, long time. So, and just playing like 80s punk music, it was cool. So,
I mean, speaking of music, man, you got quite the setup for those of you who are listening in on the podcast when this is released. Or, I mean, and those of you who are part of the happy hour, you've already always see Joe's background. He's got such a dope setup here. What's all this about? You got keyboards, you got turntables, you got multiple keyboards. You making your music? Do you got like do you got any undercover Spotify?
I used to be a DJ back in the day. I used to be a club DJ. I still have DJed recently, but not with the book and the business. I just don't have time to put on SoundCloud or go DJ at clubs, but like to again. I think it's really fun. So it's something I've always done. So
like, do you ever just like, Friday night, have a couple of beers and just start like mixing
all the time,
shit like that? Yeah,
all the time. It's good because I think, especially nowadays, being on Zoom calls, like the last thing I want to do is stare at a screen. So I just buy like analog equipment, like synths. Let me just pull up one here. Yeah, so like I just dork around. I just buy synths for fun. Nice. And just play and nerd out on equipment. So I have like boxes of synths everywhere. So, and drum machines and stuff. So I don't know. So my office is kind of a museum in a way. There's where posters, as you can see, and all kinds of fun stuff, tank shells and set list from Tool.
All kinds of I like stuff. It, man. I love the setup. So are you into like I know you always call deep learning derp learning. Hurts my feelings. I love deep learning, but are you into are you into generative models or anything like that? Are you have you researched any of that?
I've dorked around with them. I can't say I found any utility, but that's just because I don't really have a use case for it. But I mean, they're cool. They're cool. So
yeah, that's something I want to get into. Hopefully I get an opportunity to work, because part of the new job at Comet is me just creating a bunch of content.
Cool.
So some content I'm going to create is going to be all around deep learning, and I'm hoping to do some generative music projects. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and
that'd be dope. Well, let me know what you come up with. So I'd love to hear it.
Let's do a question before we jump into the random round. It's my standard final question that I ask everyone. It's 100 years in the future, what do you want to be remembered for?
I think just being, a good person who showed that, you don't have to follow the standard script in order to have fun and be successful. Right. I mean, that's what I tell my kids, and try and inspire in them, is just to, do what you're good at and do what makes you happy. I think the rest will fall into place. So, and what I want to be remembered for as well is just, raising great kids and grandkids and great grandkids that, followed the same path. So.
Love it, man. I know you're well on your way. And not only just for your kids, but you're just helping a lot of people.
That's a lot of fun, right? I mean, that's what it's about at the stage in the career, is just giving back and helping out the next gen. So
I remember seeing a post you wrote a while ago about how it's awesome at this point in your career that you're able to just kind of selflessly give back to the community and help people out. So I know it's appreciated. If you guys aren't already following Joe, definitely smash that follow. Look him up. And he's an awesome dude, man. So let's jump into the random round. All right. So first question: when do you think the first video to hit 1 trillion views on YouTube will happen? When will that happen? And what will that video be about?
What's the video with the most views right now?
I'm pretty sure it is Baby Shark with maybe 9 billion.
That is such a good point. It's probably going to be something like Baby Shark or like a Jake Paul fight that's like on for free or something. So I don't know. So, but Baby Shark, that's surprising. But not too surprising as they get played that about 1 billion times alone for my kids. So
I haven't gotten my kid into the Baby Shark stuff yet. He for some reason loves cars and is obsessed with garbage trucks. He's only a year and a half and he's just obsessed with garbage trucks. So I literally just put on like an hour and a half thing of just garbage trucks, and he's just running.
That exists.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
2-hour-long videos of just garbage trucks driving, dropping garbage, and it's crazy, man. The shit going out there.
That's cool.
Who do people tell you that you look like?
That is a good question. I Nobody really tells me that, actually. That's a good question. But yeah, I was thinking about that. Um, yeah. Next question. So, like, everyone thinks that I'm like 20 years younger than I actually am. I will say that. So
Yeah,
they just think I'm like a teenager. So
yeah, definitely that. Keeping
I'm like
your
80, by the way, for the audience. So um,
keeping that skin moisturized, Joe. Looking good. What song do you have on repeat?
that's a good question. Right now, my kids are listening to a lot of Devo, the old 80s pop band. So I think that's what I have on repeat right now. But I like Devo because, so whatever, nerd rock.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I gotta check that out. I don't think I've
yeah,
actually ever listened to Devo. Gotta keep that
they're
out.
cool.
So, what are you currently reading?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm reading David Deutsch's The Beginning of Infinity. Unlike a lot of other books, I think that's going to take a bit to read through.
Yeah,
You got to think a lot with
yeah,
that book,
yeah.
which I mean, more so than others. And in the background, what I have, Citizens, it's a book about the French Revolution. I'm reading Database Internals and O'Reilly. Um, Liminal Thinking is another book I'm reading right now.
I interviewed Dave Gray. Did you know that?
I believe so, actually. I think
Yeah,
you
yeah,
mentioned that. Yeah.
yeah. Liminal Thinking.
Um,
Talked to him about that.
it's a good book.
Yeah,
It's really helpful.
yeah, he's an awesome guy too. Like the interview got off to a interesting start. It took him a while to warm up, but then he just started warming up. Like the first few minutes felt really awkward, like the most awkward interview I've had. Uh,
Like
for those
Between Two
first,
Ferns awkward, or was it
it was just his body language was just not, he just wasn't opening, and I was like, all right, I got to warm this guy up somehow. But then eventually it something clicked, and
interesting?
he started opening up a lot more, and the interview was amazing.
He had
But
to
yeah,
cross the boundaries.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
so
Liminal thing is good. That's actually free on Audible right now, too. If anybody
hmm.
has Audible premium membership, it's free. But yeah, David Deutsch's, man, the beginning of Infinity, I listened through it and I was like, oh, fuck, man, I can't understand this shit. It's difficult to
You got to
understand.
read it.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
listen to a book
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That I'm definitely going to purchase that book. But uh, there's a couple of resources I picked up to help me kind of digest the concepts, just to prime my mind for it. One of them was a interview with Brett Hall and Naval Ravikant, who talk about
Nice.
the beginning of Infinity.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right. They did
yeah,
that. Yeah,
it's
that was
so
a good
good.
one.
Have you
Yeah,
seen
Naval's
Brett?
like one of the smartest dudes. If you can get that guy on your
Yeah,
podcast, that'd be cool. Naval's a hero of mine. He's
dude,
smart.
he is, dude. He's probably like the voice in the back of my head,
Hmm.
straight up.
The
Yeah,
other book I read all the time, and I just actually, it's funny. I own a copy of this, but I got another one just like wrap it in plastic and
oh
keep it.
yeah,
But it's Poor
yeah,
Charlie's Almanac, so it's expensive. I'll leave it at
hundred
that.
bucks.
But
Yeah,
this is, if I were to pick a desert island book,
yeah.
I would just take
I,
this one, not even hesitating.
I bought the book on your suggestion. It's been sitting on my bookshelf though. I haven't got a chance to actually read through it in its entirety. I was like, holy shit, this book is too fancy for me to read. So I just kind of like have it sitting on the top shelf of my bookshelf, like just staring me
I
down.
think
Like,
there's a PDF available of it, so just read that
yeah,
one. Yeah,
okay, yeah,
yeah. I just got this one because my other one's kind of dog-eared. It's pretty old, but
yeah,
I figured, Charlie's old at this point,
yeah. He's
and so
late
having any
80s.
collectibles of him is probably worth it. So
Yeah. Uh,
yeah,
but going back to that,
smartest guy I've ever met by a long shot. The guy is, there's smart
yeah,
people and there's Munger. So
yeah, yeah. Uh, he's got this lecture, not keynote speech. I don't know. Is that some university? What do you call that thing? Commencement speech. Yes, commencement speech that he did at a university that was talking all about mental models and stuff. And people are like, you should write a book. And then that's where that Poor Charlie's Almanac came from. But real quick, going back to that David Deutsch Beginning of Infinity,
yeah.
have you watched the Brett Hall TOK podcast Talkcast? He does just chapter by chapter breakdowns of the Beginning of Infinity and Fabric of Reality. And I don't know, it just, for a person like me, when I read a book, I will not only just read the book, I'll watch lectures of that. Well, I say watch lectures, but like presentations, TED Talks, things like that, podcast interviews. Like I'll just be all absorbed in that book from any type of way that I can get it. What's kind of your process like when you're reading books?
I read fast. I read really fast. But I retain a lot too. I think it's just reading forever. So that's that. But I would say for a book like that, I actually take notes and I
Yeah,
highlight a lot. And I journal about things too. If there's a
yeah,
concept that comes to mind, like I'll write my own thoughts on it. Because I think it's one of those things where it's one thing to read, it's one thing to passively read. Active reading really involves thinking about the concepts. I think most books can be passively read because it's just either entertainment or infotainment. But something like Deutsch's books, you're going to want to put some time into stuff like that if you really want to get out, what you're trying to put in. So
yeah, you got to wrestle with those ideas. One book you
yeah.
recommended to me is back here still, How to Read a Book.
No.
That book has been extremely helpful for me when I approach a book now.
It's really good.
Yeah, just quick note for anybody listening, like the basic thing you want to do when you get any book is make sure read the table of contents, go to the index, look at the index, see what's referenced the most, or what's what has the most page numbers. Read the back cover, what's that called, the
The
blurb.
spine or I'm writing, I have no idea what it's called. I can't remember.
The blurb, publisher's blurb. Make sure you read the preface and the introduction, and then like the first time you're reading a book, you're just skipping through pages, reading a page at a time, maybe chapter at a time, and then go back and do the same thing but for each chapter. And that's been so helpful. And when you take notes, like what's your note taking process like?
I'm old school. I have legal pads.
Yeah.
I have piles of legal pads everywhere, so I just take notes, just scribble. Yeah, it's not so much that I need to take like coherent notes. It's more just like there's an idea, jot it down, because that logs in your memory more efficiently than just saying, oh yeah, I'll totally come back to that. Like never.
Yeah.
So
it's like a pointer to memory or something like
exactly.
that. Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I've recently maybe you recommended this book to me too, How to Take Smart Notes.
That wasn't me.
That was, that I like that a lot. I've been trying to implement that in my life. So I'll have just a pile of 5x8 note cards by me when I read. And then I'll take I'll highlight, and then whatever I highlight, I'll translate it into my own words. And then that gets put into this box. And then I take what's in this box and then I put it into Obsidian. And just
that's cool.
Like they have bi-directional linking in Obsidian. That just helps create a knowledge graph. It's pretty interesting.
That's interesting. One thing I do, though, one thing I want to point out even for data scientists and people who write code, like just having a piece of paper that you just jot ideas. Like I always have, when I'm writing code, I always have a piece of paper or a legal pad. So I just write down thoughts, flows, that kind of stuff. Just a tip. It works really well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I used to spend money on like the Moleskine notebook because everybody talks about Moleskine notebook. But then I found this thing. I just got it in the mail today. There's a pack of 10 Time Works Wonders, these journals that are just as nice as the Moleskines, but it's even better because the pages are numbered. And not only the pages are numbered, you can create your own index.
That's
and
cool.
I bought a pack of 10 of these for 80 bucks Canadian. So I'm pretty sure it's a lot cheaper in the US. And yeah, I'm excited about
that's really cool
about that. I'll give you a link to it. Let's go to a random question generator and then we'll begin to wrap it up. So first question coming out the random question generator is, what's the best thing you got from one of your parents?
A childhood free from rules. So nice. I grew up with very few restrictions on what I could do, but I think that taught me self-discipline and independence. So mountains,
ocean, yeah. Same here. I grew up in California, and I used to pick ocean all the time. But nowadays, dude, it's mountains with a lake around. That would be my go-to.
That's cool.
What talent would you show off in a talent show?
Either climbing or DJing, one of the two. Yeah.
I'm there for the DJ party. Ooh, this is a good one. What bends your mind every time you think about it?
I think organizational behavior. Interesting. Yeah. Every time I think I've got it figured out, I realize that I don't, and nobody ever probably will. So
organizational behavior, break that down. What do you mean by organizational behavior?
Well, so yeah, I mean, you see a lot of companies, right? It's a collection of individually very smart people. When you get them together, it sort of takes on a life of its own, right? And company culture, everything about it. I'm just endlessly fascinated by this because it never works the way it should in theory. So I'm constantly amazed at the things I see.
One more.
Yeah.
What's your favorite piece of clothing that you own?
Hmm. Um, uh, I don't know, man. Probably this jacket. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't really have one. So I try not to get too attached to things.
That's a good way to be, man.
Yeah,
I spent a couple of weekends just getting rid of shit, just getting rid of
exactly. I just,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
same. Just moved.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like, I don't, obviously I don't like certain things because I
yeah.
don't have them. So,
Joe, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you online?
I mean, so I'm not on any social media except for LinkedIn. So if you look for me on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, or whatever, I'm not there. But you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search my name. And then you can find me on YouTube at Ternary Data, which is my company. Put up a lot of content there. Going to be pumping out a lot more content really soon, courses and tutorials and stuff. And then obviously you can email me at joe@ternarydata.com. As we kind of mentioned, I do like to help mentor. It's tough for me to do it individually. I would say if you want mentorship, this is more of a PSA. Show up to Harpreet's office hours. I can probably be more effective in a group than I can individually. Just my time is very limited right now. So
So thank you so much. I'll be sure to
thank you.
include all of that information right there in the show notes and link to the book and everything when it comes out. Joe, thank you so much for taking time
Yeah,
out of your
buddy. Of
schedule. Appreciate you being here.
course.
And as usual, my friends, remember you've got one life on this planet. Why not